If there's one thing I can say about Dark Souls, it's that I hate it. I hate how it makes me feel beaten, battered, and broken more often than not. But more than I hate how Dark Souls makes me feel, I can't help getting sucked into the challenge. That, along with a fully realised world, monstrously horrid enemy design, and a gameplay cycle that never gets old, all work together to make any of the Souls games instant classics. Animus has none of these qualities. It's really difficult reviewing any kind of game outside of the mainstream, since most indie titles are going to face massive budgetary constraints that AAA games never will. On the other hand, the best indie games out there, games like The Outer Wilds, Stardew Valley, etc., are loved by so many people because they understood what they were capable of and worked around their constraints to create something totally unique. If one man can create Stardew Valley, bad indie game developers have no excuse being bad. Now, I think it's pretty clear from the gameplay footage alone that Animus is never going to be considered an indie darling. But is it fair to criticise it the same way I'd criticise Bloodborne? I think yes, because they made me pay money for it. I may, however, go slightly easier on Animus in certain places. Anyway, let's start off by looking at one of a Souls-like's most important aspects, the world. I don't know where Animus takes place. I don't know who I am, or what I'm doing here. I'm not entirely sure that I'm even the good guy in this adventure, because the game never bothered to tell me. That should be alright then. From Software's games typically like to tell their story through the environment and enemy design. It's one of the key strengths that made that series and the subgenre so popular. Unlike the Souls games, Animus isn't open-ended. Instead, it takes the linear-based level approach, which I perfectly understand from a budgetary standpoint. Large, highly detailed areas littered with all sorts of secrets aren't cheap to make. But that doesn't change the fact that the tweaks to the formula Animus makes completely remove what makes it thrive. Each and every map in this game consists of 2 or 3 small, thrown together arena areas and a boss fight. There's absolutely no exploration whatsoever. Even these item pickups are placed so obviously in your path that it's impossible to miss them. And just to add that rotten cherry on top, the level restricts itself until you've beaten all the enemies in the area. Now that's not a big deal, since there's never any need for you to continue a level until you've killed every enemy, but it does serve as a big reminder that you're in no way capable of dictating the game's pace. You do what you're told, when you're told. The barriers also stop you attacking enemies that are attacking you, so that's nice. The lack of freedom affects the game in a much more significant way than you might realise at first. After all, the gameplay loop in a Dark Souls game centres around exploration in aid of levelling up and fighting bosses. So when you cut out that exploration, there were only 2 options left for the devs. Grind the same level on repeat until you're strong enough for the next boss, or just make the game easy enough that you're able to do most levels the first time. In case you're wondering, Animus opts for a poor attempt at both. Let's be fair to Animus then. It's not the first game to make you grind repeated levels, and it's not inherently a bad thing. So let's see what the levels look like, shall we? Yeah, they're all bland and look the same. Sometimes it's brown rock, sometimes it's brown ruins. On one occasion, I quit out a mission because I wasn't a high enough level yet and started another. And I honestly couldn't tell if I had just loaded back into the same level. Towards the end, we're treated to a cave map, but by that point, it's too little too late, and even that level design gets really boring really quick. The same can't be said for the map select screen though, which is so intriguing, it becomes baffling. I start here, the next area is here, but I can't go here. How does that work? While I'm on the topic, extra levels unlock in the same areas later down the line, So I'm not sure why there's a whole roadmap aesthetic pretending that there's some kind of journey going on. What makes those extra levels weird though, is that sometimes they're not even as difficult as the levels you have to beat to unlock them, but sometimes they're twice as hard. It's just yet another example of the game's world not making any cohesive sense.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
So it's pretty clear that the world sucks, and it's seemingly all down to the lack of budget, which typically means you'd expect the challenge element of the game to take center stage. And once again, the budget limitations, along with a disregard for simple inclusions, make the difficulty feel arbitrary. The only time the game has any semblance of being a challenge is when an enemy's been given an attack that's almost impossible to dodge. 9 times out of 10, that attack is impossible to evade because the dodge and block button do next to nothing.
Fucking useless sack of shit! Get out!
Instead of crafting a tough but fair fight, Animus just decides to give the enemies cheap tricks, like letting them damage you when you're on the floor, unable to move. The game does offer an incredibly basic skill tree and upgrade system for the weapons and armor, but because the difficulty for each level jumps massively at random times, it feels completely pointless. For example, you can start upgrading your max health from the start, yet you can't upgrade the amount of health you regain from healing until the late game. So until that point, the health upgrade is a total waste of your skill points, since once you've lost your newfound additional health, it's essentially gone. You'll only really heal when you're low on health, at which point you'll need to use 2 healing items just to get back to full health. It's smaller oversights like this that meant I never felt as though I was getting any stronger. While we're complaining about stupid things, despite being a level-based game focused on difficulty and leveling up, there's no way to tell a level's difficulty before starting, so you'll need to jump into the level and get killed just to find out. Only doing that means you'll lose some of your precious resources needed to upgrade your weapons and armor, so you'll have to grind the boring level you've already done even more. The game also suggests that I choose my weapons wisely to target specific enemies' weaknesses. Now that's all well and good, except for the fact that you also don't know which enemies will inhabit a map until you've started, and you're only allowed to swap weapons before a mission in the overworld menu screen. Not only that, pretty much every single level that isn't just a boss fight has multiple different types of enemies, so there's no way I can choose wisely because it doesn't matter. I'm not sure why the game bothered to pretend there was more to it than there actually is. That's only going to serve to disappoint people when they find out your game actually has nothing to it. You're not Dark Souls. You've not got the budget or manpower of Dark Souls, so stop trying to be Dark Souls and do something that you've got the resources for, because doing otherwise is harming your game. Take for example the pointlessness of the different weapons and armor. Aside from a handful of random armor changes, I never felt the need to swap out anything from the original set I was given at the start of the game, until right near the end of the game. And I only decided to change then because the game decided to just give me some weapons and armor that were leagues better than anything I could have upgraded to that point, which was doubly annoying because, like I said earlier, the game only lets you choose one weapon at the start. So by choosing a new weapon, I found myself getting the shit kicked out of me in situations I would have been fine in before. A lot of this could all sound nitpicky, and it is, but there's just so many little issues that stand out, most of which didn't need to be here. None of that is helped by the fact that any and all of the challenge I either created for myself, like choosing not to grind and struggling on with the levels as they unlocked, or because the game didn't even bother to tell me that the dodge button was Y. Honestly, I'd been playing for about an hour before the randomly generated tutorial message thought it best to let me know how to dodge. Naturally, I've figured it out myself before then, but it still begs the question, who maps the dodge button to Y? What kind of monster thinks that Y should be dodge and X should be block? B is the universal dodge button. It's almost as though the devs thought that if they used a different control scheme to Dark Souls, we wouldn't figure out that Animus is just a ripoff. I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's fucking ludicrous.
Ludo, what? Use some normal-ass words!
99% of the times I died were because I forgot which button did what. Instead of healing when I pressed X, I just stood there like a plonk, waiting to get smacked down. All of this would be fine if the gameplay was anything more than tapping the A button and sometimes the B button. Throw in a lack of presentation, unhelpful tutorials, and that thing Dark Souls does where it takes previous boss enemies and makes them weaker regular enemies to save on creating new models, except in Animus, it happens literally seconds after you've beaten that boss, and you'll find an experience that can only be described as messy. And that's a big shame, because I was hoping to praise Animus when I started. The opening crawl is generic, but the effort is really appreciated. The same goes for the music. I also want to take a moment to praise the character models. There's not many of them, but the few the game does have are quite well made, and the mini cutscenes before the boss fights do a good job of showing these models off. I also really enjoy the little combo meter. Basically, once the meter is filled, a random attack combo is selected to do more damage. It's a nice and simple addition that encourages trying and learning the handful of combo moves, while also increasing your enrage meter, which is another good addition that allows you to hit harder and faster while using less stamina. Yeah, it's not a new concept, but I like it here though. I'd love to recommend Animus standalone on the basis that if you love Dark Souls, this is another way to experience a similar, if shoddier version of it. I can't do that though, because not only are there better Dark Souls ripoffs, From Software themselves seem more than happy to keep us filled up on grueling, difficult adventures. If you've already finished Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Demon Souls, the Demon Souls remake, Bloodborne, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, The Surge 2, Lords of the Fallen, Ashen, and Mortal Shell, then I'd suggest you still don't bother with Animus standalone, because you're obviously a fan of Souls-like games, and this one is only going to disappoint you. Me personally, I like that the game encourages you to replay it, but considering that half my time with Animus was dull, and the other half frustrating for the sake of it, I don't think I'm going to bother. I just want it out of my sight. This is really just me being pedantic, but why is there a glowing light trail telling me where I need to go? There's no branching paths here. This isn't Fable. I think I can figure out where I'm supposed to go, thanks. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video. It's a bit of a shame that I had to be negative towards this game because I really did want to like it, but there's just so much better out there, and this really just does not compare. Have you given Animus a go? Have you seen it and not bothered? Have you never heard of it before? What's your favourite Souls-like game? Whatever crap you want to let us know down below. If you did want to leave a like and subscribe, we would appreciate that so much because it does really help us. And apart from that, just keep safe and cheers.